Welcome back to the Behind the Well Show. I'm your host, Roger Abel, back in studio with Elias, Randel. Eli, how's it going today?
Good. Happy to be back on the show. How are you?
I'm good. I just got back from a week-long vacation down at the lake. I'm all rejuvenated, ready to rock, and I feel like I got thrown into the back-to-school storm. Although I'm not sure we're going to actually have back-to-school on Wednesday, which I know has my wife a little stressed out because it's supposed to be 103 degrees here.
But I think they'll have air conditioning now.
Well, okay, so we talked about this. We believe they have air conditioning, but do all the buses have air conditioning?
Oh, probably not.
So I think that was more the concern, is if the buses don't have air conditioning and 80% of the students show up on a bus, will they actually have it? So we got the over-under in my household on, are we going to have school? Are we getting out early? And my wife is hoping that we have school because she has all kinds of things planned for the first day of school after they get there, all these errands she's going to run that she hasn't got to do all summer, and it's going to kind of mess up her schedule and mine. I'm supposed to go fishing to Green Bay Thursday, so we'll see what happens if we get canceled.
The weather's always getting in the way.
Okay, quiz.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like if you asked me before this week, hey, when was the last time I got above 100 degrees? I'd be like, well, last year probably.
Above 100?
Yeah.
It was above 100 a couple weeks ago.
Okay, up until this year. When was the last time we were above 100?
Every summer.
I don't think so, because I Googled it earlier this morning. I think you're going to be shocked. 2022. 2021, they don't have anything from 22. Hottest day, 95 degrees. The last time we were above 100 was 2013.
Really?
I was shocked, actually. And I was talking to my mom on the way in here. I was born in 1978, and she told me, and this is interesting, she told me when I was born it was 103 degrees.
The day you were born?
Yeah.
She remembers that.
August 31st.
I guess that's probably memorable because it's not like it's 87 out. 103 is a lot.
Guess what the warmest day was in 1978?
The day you were born.
No. It was 93 degrees. That's as hot as it got in 1978. But my mom tells a story how it was 103 degrees. You know how
that's not true.
Well, I mean, according to historical records, it's not.
But it's a good story.
But it's a good story. But you know how things start. Like, okay, it was 95 degrees. And then the next year or 5 years later, oh, yeah, the year you're born, it's 97. And every year it just keeps getting ratcheted up a little bit. So this morning it was 103, and I didn't say anything, but, I mean, the last time it was over 103 was 1988. It was 105 degrees. But most years, like mid-90s is where we're at. And I'm a little biased because I spent a lot of time in Missouri. Well, it's always 100 degrees down there. Like, it's always going to be 100 in the summer. But I thought that was just kind of an interesting way to start the show because we're having this heat wave. We've got 3 or 4 days predicted that are going to be over 100. And I went back last night because I was just curious. When was the last time we saw like this extended streak of days, like over 100? How long ago do you think it was?
For how many days in a row?
Yeah.
In Iowa?
Yeah.
Probably mid-80s.
1910.
1910.
I'm going to read you some statistics, and this is not a political thing anyway. But one of two things has happened. Either global warming isn't as bad as they say, or two, our metrics for measuring temperature have changed. But 1910, the hottest day, was 100. 1911, 110. 1912, 100. 1913, 106. 1914, 103. 1915, 92. Over this, 12-year period of time, 10 out of 12 years was over 100 degrees. We haven't seen that ever again. Ever again. That was the warmest 10 out of 12 years in our state's history. Well, I mean, not by a little, by a lot. So I told my wife, I said, were their temperature gauges different, or was global warming a lot worse in the 1910s than it is today?
I don't know. The government makes our weather now. So have you heard that conspiracy? Yeah. So you can find videos on YouTube where the government makes the weather now. So
well, here's what I've learned about YouTube. I love YouTube because I'm on it. But you can find whatever information or misinformation you want to get out there. And, I think you'll agree with this. I can tell which clients are watching YouTube and which ones aren't.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's all based upon...
You can tell what media they're consuming by the questions they ask.
And what's interesting, I can tell what YouTube's pushing to consumers during certain times. I mean, it's really easy. Someone comes in and asks about this. I'm like, huh, you've been on YouTube. Because I'm on that. I see what's showing up, what the algorithm's pushing out.
Were you on YouTube again? You need to stop doing that.
Well, I mean, how do you tell them? I mean, you can't just come out and say, hey, get off YouTube. But for the most part, 90% of this information is just clickbait for people. Like, hey, click on my video. In fact, I saw one on Michael Burry last night, how Michael Burry, biggest stock market crash coming again, went all in on shorting the market in August of 2023. But that was the clickbait to get you to watch it. So, of course, guess what? I watched it. So I got a question for you. Have you got any calls or anything on the letter that went out saying the student loans are forgiven?
No.
Yeah, so I had
I don't have any, but my wife didn't get a letter about her student loan being forgiven.
Well, one of my buddies called me and said, is this real? I said, I don't know.
This is the first I heard of it.
Yeah, so it's actually a letter they got, and he goes, is this real? I said, I don't know. I don't have any student loans, so I don't know if it's real, but it shows the date his loan was dispersed, his wife's loan was dispersed, and it says they were both forgiven. It was like $67,000.
Who's the letter from?
I didn't look that close at it, but I'm like, I don't know. You'll have to. I don't know, but
person. I'm not a student loan
broker. But remember, they just came out where they canceled what 800 some odd thousand people's student loans. Well, maybe this is one of them. I don't know, but it gets me thinking. I was on. I feel like I'm participating in the sewer of society on all the social media. But I was on Reddit recently, and there was a dad looking for a little bit of advice about college expenses. I thought it would just be a good question about kind of what would you do, Elias? And the dad asked, and I think everybody kind of goes through this in life, am I wrong for not paying for my son's college tuition despite being able to afford it? At 18, we gave our son his college fund, told him he can do what he pleases with it. If he chooses to spend traveling, do whatever he wants, he can. Wife wants to pay for it. Dad says, I'm not paying for it. I already gave you what you had. And I have some opinions about this because I'll be honest with you. This is similar to what my parents did. My parents set me up with enough money to pay for an in-state public education from a tuition standpoint. Everything else was on me. Well, when I went to college, I chose to go play baseball at a community college where my dad coincidentally taught. So it was free.
It's a good price.
Well, I needed
a
car.
I
needed a car. So my dad said, well, you can bank the money or you can take X amount of dollars and go buy a car. So I went and bought a car because I needed to go to and from school. I wasn't living on campus. So I have some mixed emotions about how to handle this because of my personal experience. And what I can tell people is I didn't get serious about college until I had some skin in the game. When it was free and I had no skin in the game, my level of seriousness was about a 2 out of 10. But as soon as I went to University of Iowa, now I had to pay for a room, board, books, spending money. The last thing I wanted to do is blow my money and borrow more. I mean, I was fortunate. I came out of college with a very, very small amount of debt, partly because I worked all my way through, but I didn't really get serious about it until it was my money in the game. What do you think? What are your thoughts?
So there's a level of skin in the game that probably everyone needs to have to be serious about the situation. This specific situation, they had money to pay tuition, but the son used it to go traveling and find himself, and now his dad doesn't want to give him more money for school. Like, I don't think he's being a jerk by saying that. I mean, I gave you all this, and he gave him flexibility. I had a pot of money for you. I said you could use it however you want, and you used it, but I already told you I wasn't going to give you more, so I don't feel like the dad should feel like he should give him more. If he decides to help him, like, is it really going to hurt him to help him pay for college if he's doing all the right things and getting good grades? Probably not. But I think up front you might want to, hey, I want to find out if you're serious or not. Because, like, if you just want my money to go pay for it, maybe you're not that serious. But if you figure it out on your own and then I maybe later help you out, then I know that you're serious. So I'm not sure.
I feel like this becomes a really good money lesson right here. I gave you what you needed. You blew it. Now you have to figure it out.
Yeah.
And, okay, so Dad can afford to pay for this, right? Clearly, from what I gathered, he could afford to pay for whatever. And in this situation, maybe it's a case where you make your child go become really responsible, figure this out on their own. If they do a great job, doesn't mean you can't help them in the future. I mean, if they have to go take some loans, but they get a 4.0 and kind of use this as a really good lesson, maybe that's a good way to teach them about money and making mistakes, because every single person I know has made a money mistake. And fortunately, this is for a 19-year-old or 18-year-old. So at the end of the day, they have tons of time to recover from this mistake versus somebody who's 65 and decides they're going to make a colossal money mistake. Those are two different things. I don't know. I think that probably happens a lot, and I think this is an opportunity to teach your child about money habits. It also makes me wonder what was taught up until this time, because if from the time they're 10 till the time they go to college, we haven't taught in schools how to manage money, and mom and dad didn't spend any time teaching their child how to manage money, why would you expect that you give them a pot of dollars? They're going to know how to manage money. So there's probably a little bit more information, but if they've been working diligently with their child to teach them about money management and all these different things, and then they blew the money, that's one thing. But if you just turned over a big pot of money to an 18-year-old and they blew it, maybe that's mom and dad's fault too.
Yeah, it could be part of it. Maybe the dad is thinking, well, I probably haven't done the best job, so although this is a hard lesson to learn, it's a good start in learning that, like, you got to have some accountability for this. So maybe that's part of it too. So anyway, on the topic of going back to school, so kids are getting started, as long as it's not so hot out that they can't get on the bus and go there. And we were reading some stuff about financial stress and, like, the financial stress of going back to school, getting restocked on all the school items and inventory. And I actually called into our local radio station. They reached out, asked me if I'd call in and do like a 5-minute segment on it. So I called the other day to talk about financial stress that can be caused from going back to school. And a lot of it is from, well, and because you have young kids now going to school, and so do I, there's a lot, you get a big list of stuff that you have to buy. And that's been going on forever. But if you're not really prepared to do that, you might be using a credit card to do it. That could cause some stress in your life. And most families aren't going to let their kids go without, you're going to get them some new clothes. You're going to get markers, crayons, and all those things. And I think another thing I was interested in, or at least I thought was insightful or interesting when I was reading about this topic, well, there's a lot of teachers too that supply their own classroom with a lot of the stuff that they need. So I'm sure getting back to school, you could be doing great all summer, but as a teacher, like, you got all your lesson plans, you got all these new kids coming that you need to get to know, figure out how to work with them and motivate them. And then you might feel like, well, my classroom doesn't have X, Y, and Z. I just have to go buy it, and I have to flip the bill for that. And what I talked about on the radio with Doug Wagner was, a lot of the things we talk about are good ways to minimize the stress of going back to school. And I would hope that the families that we help and work with, I hope they don't have this as stress in their life, right? Because we've created either a financial plan for them, we've helped them with some budgeting, we've helped them prioritize kind of their goals and outline how it's going to work. So then they have the discretionary income and they don't feel bad about spending it to get kids back into school. And there was some other tips on this too. So if you need help, like if you do need help paying for back to school supplies, some of the tips were maybe include or involve some family members. I'm guessing that's probably maybe asking like grandparents to help with some stuff, and I'm sure if they can, they'd be happy to do it. We all know grandparents love to spoil their grandkids. And then when you're at the stores and you're going through the list of items, because when you're going to go and you have your school supplies. Well, the stores know what you're coming to buy, right? So then they're going to put displays of toys or just whatever, the upsell items that they make a better margin on, and they're strategically going to place those. So maybe avoiding some of those impulse buys and saying no to some of the stuff that's there that you don't need. But I think if it's something that's stressing you out, if you can minimize the purchases and just get down to a list of these are the things that we need to get back to school this year and get started for a successful school year. That's probably the most prudent thing you could do in that situation.
Let me ask you a question. Do you do this back to school shopping or does your wife?
I don't do it.
Okay, so has she done it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
we're scheduled to go back in 2 days.
Yeah,
so.
Us too. But what I didn't realize, where my daughter goes to school, you can just click a button and they deliver all the stuff for your kid to school. So we didn't have to do any back to school shopping. It's just, here's what your kid needs.
Really?
You press a button, buy it. It'll be there tomorrow. So we do like an orientation tomorrow morning. They'll go check it out. If there's anything else we need, then we can go get it. But all the basics of what they need, they already have set up in a list. It's bought, delivered, already ready to go. So
that's a nice service.
Well, the neat thing about it is what you just talked about, you get to avoid all the distractions of the other stuff. And I'm in tune with these distractions because I travel with my kids a lot. My kids like to stop and go to the bathroom a lot when we go on vacation.
Just so they can go in the gas station.
So they can go to the gas station because every gas station now, guess what they have? Stuffies and toys. Dad, we need to get a stuffy. So yesterday I fought this battle.
All right, at 3 to 4 feet, all these little stuff.
And it doesn't matter if it's like the beautiful truck stop or the place you're really nervous about stopping because like the bathroom's going to be clean and all this stuff. They all have them. So we were in one yesterday. Go in and I'm going to get a tea and my daughter comes over with 2 stuffies, one for me and one for sister. I'm like, yeah, no. So now we're bargaining because, these are like the big stuffed animals. We went to the small stuffed animals. No. How about candy? No. How about Pop-Tarts? No. Oreos? No. How about Pringles? We settled on Pringles. But I had to bring them down from the stuffed animals to the Pringles, but that's exactly what they're doing at the retail stores. So when I asked my wife, I'm like, do we need to go buy anything? Because in our house, I have really no involvement in the school decision making. I trust my wife to do that. Whatever needs to be done, you do. She goes, no. In fact, this year they just had a list. We pressed a button, it'll all be delivered. And tomorrow morning when we go to check everything out, we'll make sure we have what we need. And if not, we can go just fill in with that stuff.
Wow. I love that idea.
So that's one thing. The second thing is, you're right. Most of these teachers are responsible for buying a lot of the stuff for their classroom. So what's neat is, we got an email from our daughter's teacher. Hey, this is the stuff I need if anybody would be willing to help us out. And it's all on Amazon. So I can literally just add to my cart, hit the button, and it gets delivered to her classroom.
Order it and send it to the school.
Yeah. Which we do that. I've done that we had a nanny who started out teaching. We did that. I had a person I knew out in the state of Washington. We did that for them. So we typically do something like that because we can afford to help them out. And I feel a little bit bad that the school district isn't paying for this stuff when they need it for their classroom. Why should the teacher have to spend $500 or $600 of their own money for my kid to get an education? It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
They shouldn't, but teachers are typically, they typically have such big hearts and they care so much about their kids. They're going to go spend it. They shouldn't. And they shouldn't have
they're for
to,
sure
but
going to spend it.
They're going to.
But some of the stuff they actually need to facilitate class. I looked at one of them, it's she needed some labels for folders. Doesn't the school district just spring for some labels?
Nope.
It kind of makes me want to be on the school board and be like, what are we doing here? Seriously. I mean, how many classes do we have? If I can look at our school district, we have this giant football stadium, nicer than all the colleges around here, other than University of Iowa and UNI, right? You've been there.
Yeah.
Is it better than Coe's?
Linn-Mar, yeah.
Yeah. Is it better than Mount Mercy?
Yeah.
Is it better than all these small colleges for the most part? But we're making our teachers spring for folder labels?
Yeah, don't even get me started. The money, like, okay, and especially football, you look in the type of stadiums they're building for the kids to play, and it's great. But to your point, we can build a $10 million football stadium, but we can't get like little odds and ends for the teachers to help teach the kids. It's just ridiculous.
Okay, did you watch the Manziel? I'm not trying to get off topic, but have you watched it?
I've heard a lot about it. I haven't watched it.
You got to watch it. Yet. Great example. Football is the gateway for enrollment to these colleges anymore. So they were talking about Texas A&M was always considered just kind of like the hardworking blue collar, college. Manziel went there literally right after his freshman year. They invested hundreds of millions of dollars into their football stadium because it was the gateway to enrollment. And, the Johnny Manziel story is a pretty good one. Like, he partied hard. That's what he liked to do. Let's just be honest about it. But he said, I have a distinct disdain for the NCAA. Everybody out there profited hundreds of millions of dollars because of my performance, and I got a college education. Like, that's it? You guys, your enrollment went up X. You put $100 million into football. I didn't get anything here. But that's kind of the same thing. I don't know if these high schools see, hey, because of open enrollment, this is our gateway to enrollment or whatever. But I look at that stadium. It's great. But what else could we have done with all the money than put up a fancy football stadium? I mean, I get
buy labels for the folders for all the teachers.
And I'm sentimental because I really like the old football stadium. So did you ever ref it? You probably never went to
No,
Linn-Mar.
I've only been at their new one.
Okay, so their old one was down in a bowl. Like, you came down a hill. So when you walked in, when you were playing football, you came down this hill, like into a valley to the stadium. And it was awesome because, for a quarter mile, you're walking down the hill in your cleats and you see all the people. It was really cool. Now, I don't even know how they get it. I guess they have locker rooms in the stadium. But
yeah, they probably do. Probably under the bleachers or something.
So there's stresses not only for, parents, but also for the teachers trying to make sure that your kids are getting a good education. But that's, if we're going to talk about financial stresses, I know I talked about my buddy who got that letter in the mail, but I think there's other people who are going to face some financial stress that they really haven't seen since 2020. A lot of student loan borrowers have not been required to make payments that were paused during the pandemic. And they're going to start back up, especially now that the Supreme Court ruled against Biden's student loan forgiveness. So I'm really confused as to what's going on. Like, were these loans forgiven, then not forgiven, but then we forgave some? I don't know. We're going to have to get more information on it. But here's what I know. People that haven't made a student loan payment for, let's call it 3 years because of the pandemic, they don't know what it's like to make a student loan payment. And I promise you, they've adjusted their lifestyle to not have that payment. So all of a sudden, we got $500, $600, $700 a month in student loan payments coming. And there's like this three-headed monster happening right now. We got a payment we didn't expect. It's basically like buying a car. We've depleted all the cash we saved up during COVID because of inflation. And credit card levels are at their highest ever. It's not good.
It's going to be hard to add in another payment for a lot of families and consumers out there.
At some point, I just think something's going to break.
Okay, so what do you think is going to break?
I don't know, but I just know for most people, if you have a loan that you haven't paid on for 3 years, and all of a sudden like, oh yeah, by the way, that $500 a month payment starts up. Like, most people haven't planned for that.
No.
The average car payment's $700. People bought cars.
Yeah, all those student loan payments rolled up into new vehicles.
That's exactly what happened. They all rolled. Hey, we don't have this payment. We can afford the new car. It's $50,000. Well, we were paying $500 in the student loan, so we can spend $500 in the car. And oh, by the way, now the student loan comes. So, are people going to get delinquent on their cars? Maybe. I mean,
Well, people are already getting delinquent on vehicles. That's already happened, right?
Well, I think, but maybe it gets worse. Maybe that's what breaks. Maybe all of a sudden, we see some dramatic decreases in used car prices, and I don't know exactly what's going to happen. I just know that if you're tapped out on your cash, and I'm going to lead into the next topic we have here, and I'll let you talk about it, but credit card debt just surpassed $1 trillion. So if you're tapped out on your credit cards, you're tapped out on your student loans, you're tapped out on your cash, you have this car payment, now you have to pay the student loans. What are you not paying? Are you not paying your credit card? Are you not paying the car payment? Or are you not paying the student loans? Which one of the three? I think most people are going to make their car payment because they see that as a way to get around. Yeah, I'm guessing they start to default on the credit card and the student loan first, and probably the student loan, because they're going to say, well, if they don't pay it, what are they going to do? Like, they don't want to probably lose their credit card because they believe that's their way to function in life. It's got to have some credit. I don't know. Something is going to happen, especially with where the credit card debt has gotten. I'm just reading this here. Credit card balances have now notched 7 consecutive quarters of year-over-year growth.
Yeah, so it might be time. There might be a lot of consumers out there. It's time for a financial reset and maybe get some, prioritize some different things. Here's something I found really interesting. And you just said, so credit card debt surpassed $1 trillion for the first time here, the second quarter of this year. 61% of Americans say they're living paycheck to paycheck. And inflation is getting better. Inflation's cooling off. So people are living paycheck. Now, inflation was part of that problem because stuff got so much more expensive. You had to tap into your savings. But I think a lot of this stuff, it's a lot of times comes back to, just doing some of the basic things right, the fundamentals, like making sure you have an emergency fund. I know that's something we talk about a lot. It's not like a sexy finance topic, but you got to have money available when things don't go correctly in life or just something happens. And a lot of people, kind of the way things are working now, they're going to have to get their debt paid off and make that a priority and implement some sort of strategy to get it paid off, whether it's a debt snowball, debt avalanche. We can debate till the cows come home on which strategy is better and what makes more sense. You just need to pick a plan and execute it and get your debt paid off.
Well, I can tell you what strategy academia believes is better.
What's that? The
snowball.
Debt snowball.
Yeah, because it's all about human emotion.
It's more psychological.
Very few people can run their entire life strictly based on mathematics. There is a very small percentage of people out there that can be very disciplined based upon mathematics. Most people, if you went and polled people that went to college and high school, said, what was your least favorite class? I'll bet many of them they will say math.
Yeah, math probably is up there.
Math is up there because
the sciences is probably up there. Those
for
are
some
pretty
people,
hard.
For some people, math clicks. Some people, it doesn't. But even for people that it clicks with, they can't eliminate their emotions based upon math. And the debt avalanche is strictly about math. Has nothing to do with human emotions. And human emotions controls most of everything we do with debt repayment, money, finances, stock markets, all controlled by emotions. If it wasn't, we'd be great investors if emotions weren't part of this. We'd just look at the pure mathematics and numbers.
So, and I think in addition to some of those basic things, get your debt paid off, have an emergency fund. Another thing I wanted to talk about through this topic was kind of planning beyond just some of those basic things. So let's say you're good with that. You've gotten, you're not living paycheck to paycheck. You got your debt and paid down. You have an emergency fund. Because one thing you hear a lot from people is, well, I save in my 401k, I do 3% because they give me the 3% match. Well, for you to really be financially solvent or successful, build some kind of wealth, you're going to have to save a higher percentage of your income than 3% of it to get there. If you make a high enough income, maybe 10%, like that's kind of the start of, okay, you're on the right track. But the reality is most people, you're going to have to find a way to get to like 15 and 20% of your income that you're saving and investing. And that's kind of planning. To me, that's planning beyond just the foundational things that can make you successful. And I think if you get those financial goals in order and you start doing those things, here's a couple things are going to happen. One, you're going to be set up for long-term success with your money. And two, short-term things, they just start to go away. Like I know for a fact that when I was 22 and I had no money, like I needed it more often, right? But like if you're responsible and you build up and you do the things you should do, you get to a point where it's like life, when you're prepared for things, less things go wrong, right? Isn't that just kind of the way that life works? So it gets easier as you work through it.
Elias, I think that's actually really good advice. Like everybody works through things in life. Everybody has tough times, but if you think about it, like we're going to work through it. You're going to get through it. Nobody's just skated through life with no adversity whatsoever.
That's
so
true.
Just kind of take them in stride. And, I feel like this show we've talked about all these negative things.
It is kind of a negative.
I don't know.
Today.
Maybe, I don't know. But whatever. We're going to hit one cool thing. So all this bad stuff is happening, right? People have student loans coming back up, got to pay for school. There's one cool thing happening, and this is a report by Fidelity. The number of people with $1 million or more in their 401k accounts went up 10% from April till June.
Really?
Yeah.
So that's great news.
It's great news.
That's awesome. That's something all investors, everyone should be proud of that. That means there's more people being successful investors out there. That's a great thing.
The Fidelity that came out with these numbers, there were 378,000 retirement savers that had Fidelity 401k plans with balances of at least $1 million. There were 350 IRA millionaires. So difference, you had retirement plans, so it was 401ks. IRA millionaires, there were 350,000. The average 401k balance, so this is across all 401ks, was up from 103,000 to 112,000, and the average IRA balance was up from 104 to 113,000. So all in all, people are doing a better job saving, and twofold. One, we've had a stock market that participated this year. But two, I think there's a lot more awareness, especially from shows like this, as to, hey, what are the things we need to do to get set up for savings? And I think back 30 years ago, let's go 40 years ago. So 1980, Roth IRA didn't exist. Most people in 1980 were going to have a pension. Well, pensions are gone, so we should expect that we're going to see a lot more millionaires in their retirement savings account than we did 40 years ago. And it's not just inflation and money's worth more, but their dollars are being diverted to a different place, right? If the employer was putting 10% into a pension 40 years ago, and now they're putting 10% in a 401k, they're just going to look different. It doesn't mean they're going to have a lot different outcomes from an income standpoint. It's just who's responsible for what. Let's be honest. If you don't have a pension, which most people don't today unless you work for like a big insurance. If you work for a big insurance company, a lot of them still have pensions.
Yeah, some of the unions.
But if states, some of them have pensions still. But if you don't work for one of those people, you are 100% responsible for this retirement deal yourself. So I would expect that these numbers keep going up. And I think there's also another kind of hidden, not agenda item, but something that's happening that's causing these balances to go up. There's two primary things. One is auto enrollment. Now when you start a job, you're automatically enrolled. You have to actually opt out of most of the 401k plans. Like if you don't want to participate, you have to opt out. So how many people, if you start the job and they have you putting in 3% to get the 3% match, and you started day one, how many people are going to opt out of it?
They're not going to. They're
Fewer.
just going to do it.
Fewer people are going to opt out than would opt in if they didn't have that feature. So that's feature one. Like we're automatically enrolling people versus people having to go enroll themselves. Two is it's become a lot easier to change your systematic contributions. I remember back mid-2000s, early 2000s, so like 2003, 2004, I started in the business with an insurance company. And they had a 401k plan. Like, they offered it, and they gave a percentage to you too. I was only able to change like my contribution like once or twice a year. There were some limitations on how I could do it. So you're always nervous to put too much in because I was in a commission world. And if I'm contributing too much, maybe I won't have enough money. Where now, all these plans, you can pretty much go on and click of a button and change.
Yeah, you can.
However much you want.
Pretty seamless.
So
yeah.
the ease of the auto enrollment, the ease of changing your systematic contributions has made this program referred to as the 401k a lot easier to navigate and much more user-friendly for people. So I actually expect that we'll keep seeing balances go up, partly because if you think about where young consumers get their information, it's platforms like this. It's podcasts, it's YouTube, it's social media, and it's talked about so much. I think this younger generation's going to understand the importance of systematic contributions and investing. And we saw that, the craze during 2000 with Robinhood. We had all these young people who got into investing. Whether or not it was healthy type of investing, it's to be debated, but it opened up the curiosity and probably the thought that, hey, okay, maybe this isn't a place to go gamble, but this is a place that I can start to secure my future, and these are the steps that I need to take to do it.
I agree with that, and I think even just through practice, the things we see with our clients and families, but then also through conversations, there's a lot of young people that you can tell that they're consuming good financial content. Because I've had several young people over the last 2 years tell me they don't care about timing the market. They just want to get their money in systematically and build it up over time. And I think that's something I would say that's probably due to the good financial content out there, because I think there's more. I feel like I get more questions on like us as a firm. Do you guys time the market from older investors? They'll ask questions that kind of lead to that conversation where I feel like the younger investors are really picking up on the behavior. Just they don't care about timing. They don't care about getting the best price every single time. They just want to invest and build their money over time, which is the right way to do it.
Okay, so I had a thought as we're going through the show. We talked about the debt snowball earlier, right? Just briefly what that is. It's where you pay your debts off smallest to largest. What if somebody started a savings snowball?
Some people do. Like you increase it systematically?
Well, okay, so let's say you had $10,000 of debt, right? And you started paying it off, and in the end, you were paying $1,500 a month to get that debt paid off. What if someone just said, hey, debt's paid. I got to get my emergency fund, right? Make sure I have my 3 to 6 months. But after it's done, now I'm going to take the $1,500 and invest it all, even if they're above their 15% of investing. What would happen? Then, I got a pay raise of $400 a month. Now my $1,500 went to $1,900. They would become very, very wealthy because you can work the debt snowball the same way maybe we're going to call it the accumulation snowball.
There you go.
Maybe we can coin a new phrase.
Yeah. So here's what we know. The more you save, and we know this, no one's ever retired. People that we work with, maybe someone out there does exist, but we say all the time, we've never heard anyone say, I wish I had less money to retire on. It doesn't happen.
Okay. Here's what's interesting. I've had one person tell me that they know a lot of people that said they saved more than they needed to.
Sure.
But
okay.
But we know this individual.
I'd like to meet 'em.
Yeah. And most of the time when they say that, that's her excuse for not wanting to save more money. Because I've done this for 21 years and I've actually never had a retiree come in here and say, I wish I would have saved less. Because even if they've got to this critical mass of $8, $10, $15 million, they have things they want to do with that money. Do you think?
And if you're able to save that, like you're used to a certain lifestyle too, and you're not going to be willing to give that up.
Think about, well, it's not even the lifestyle. Warren Buffett, he doesn't ever say, I wish I had less money. He still lives a lifestyle he lived 30 years ago. He's in the same house. But you know what he does with his money? Philanthropy. So even though he's accumulated this massive amount of money, he's found other ways to do good with the money. He doesn't say, I wish I would have less. No, because he's doing good with the money.
That's a good point. I like that.
So with that said, I think, a couple of overall lessons today is, if you develop a solid game plan, whether it's paying off student loans, getting a handle on your debt, or, becoming a 401k millionaire or an IRA millionaire, you just need a good plan put in place to get you into that good spot. And if you don't have a plan or you're looking for help with some of this stuff, you can go to btwealthshow.com and we'd be happy to help you with that. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on our social media pages. Till next week, want to thank you. Hope everybody has a good back to school, and I hope everybody's staying a little bit cooler than we are.